I'll take it from the top. All right, so Francis and I come from technology and actually investing in real estate. And while we were doing that, we were always looking at different asset classes, and we started learning about cryptocurrency, which most people hear about cryptocurrency, but they only look at it as Bitcoin and Ethereum, numbers going up and down. People are like, oh, that's imaginary money, right? So Francis and I really started to dive into what it really was, the technology side of it, because we both came from code. So once we realized you can borrow off of your cryptocurrency, just like you could borrow off of a house or art, we were like, oh, wait, this is an opportunity. So we started to play around with that. And this whole concept comes from most people are not saving enough to retire, as like a known thing in the United States and across the world. But what we learned, Francis and I, from our investing portfolios and learning from that history is consistency is what creates a big portfolio. Even if you put $100 a month for 30 years, you could be a millionaire, right? But again, people don't put $100 a month away for 30 years. So what we realized though is people do pay bills for 30 years though. So we figured, how can we combine those two worlds where we would invest the same amount as you're spending in your bills every month? So we basically figured out you could bring the money in you're about to spend and then borrow off of it to spend the money. So I'll show you an example, and then you could ask questions from there, and then we'll go deeper into the full Q&A. Francis, did I skip anything that I should know?
No, we're good. I think it's a little different because it's group. Usually we ask questions. We're like, so what's your investment goal?
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know? But it's like Robert McNaught going, Candace, and Candace, not like, I don't know you, I don't know you. So we're just gonna go like top line, and whatever questions you have, just shout them out, and we'll try to like get them.
Yeah, and as soon as you have the question, just stop me, because I know sometimes I'll go further in and then people forget their questions.
Yeah, he's a talker, so just
And
stop.
I'll talk the whole time. That's why I stop and ask Francis. All right, so example, let's say you have a bill that's $300 a month. By depositing, if you take the 15% buffer here, you would deposit $345. It would borrow 300 immediately. You would send that back to your bank account and pay your bill. If you could afford more, but this is how much it will invest in the first 30 days. It will invest $118 of your 345. This is a big thing. A lot of people are like, wait, but how is that possible? If I took 300 and there's only 45 left, how are you investing $118? So the way that works is, again, the cryptocurrency space. You're basically having a collateral asset and a loan. So the $345 is collateral, like you just bought a house. Let's say you bought a $345 house, and then you just refinanced $118. So now you take that $118, you pay your bill, and that 345 will eventually all become Bitcoin and Ethereum. And now over the years, that $345 will compound at the value growth of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So far in the last 5 years, Bitcoin and Ethereum have been growing combined 80 to 90% a year. So this is how you can start growing your money, right? So if you did this with one bill, or as I was speaking to somebody last night, with all of their bills, they have about $3,000 worth of bills. And they were like, okay, if I bring in an extra $450, I can invest all $3,450. And I was like, yes, you bring the 3450 in, borrow the $3, pay your expenses. And then over time, all $3,450 will be invested and grow at the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Does that make sense? I'm going to stop there because I know this is where I lose people. Any questions about anything I just said? You guys all got it? You guys are super geniuses.
No, I don't have it all, but please continue, because the way my mind works is I formulate, think about it, and then the questions will come a little bit later, but just keep going.
All right, amazing. And of course, I'm recording it. I'll send you guys the link, and you guys can rewatch and you get any questions later. Because that's another thing. One thing we see with people is they'll think they understand it. Even people using it, we'll come back a few months and be like, I finally understand how I can use this even better, right? So again, that's why we tell people start out with a certain amount, like something like $300 that you can bring in and take back out. And you can see the whole process. You watch it for a few months and then you say, okay, I'm willing to put up more and go from there. So, okay.
And also, just to clarify this, so he's saying so the way it works is you put $345 in your Coinbase account or any exchange you use, Binance or Kraken, whatever you use, and then you bring that into your wallet. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the crypto space, but you move money around and then it gets into our software. And once it's here, you're going to put in 345, but automatically you're going to get $300 back. So if your phone bill, your cable bill is $300, you're really only putting in 45. So out of pocket is only $45 because you're going to put in 345 first. We buy Bitcoin and Ethereum, you borrow $300 and it goes back into your bank account automatically. And it's like Venmo. Then you click it 1 to 3 days and you'll get it the next day. And that's kind of how that works. Just so you know that it's not like 345 extra bucks. If your bill is 300, you put in the extra buffer and then you're going to get the $300 back. And here what changes is the buffer, which we always like to point this out, because if you put at 15% and you look at the green number, it was $118. But now if you put 20%, which is $60, right? So it's a difference between 45 and 60 where you see the deposit buffer. So for $15 more, you're actually investing $82 more in the green number, right? So, and then if you keep going, so if you go to 25%, you'll see the difference. So from 45 to 75, you're at $20 more, you're investing actually $120 more. And we find the sweet spot to be 35% more. But that means if your bill is $300, you have to put in an extra $105. So you're coming out of pocket $105, but you're actually investing $361. So if you put it in 405, which you're really putting in 105, but you're investing $361 in 1 month. Because what we do is we take the 405 and we dollar cost average it within a month. So we take it 30 days. So every day we're invested in the market. So let's say, because if you have $400 and you put it in day one, and maybe it's like, Bitcoin is at 300,000. The next day it's like, oh wait, it's 250. You're like, damn, like I lost money. So what we do is like, we buy every day. So you're going into the market every day. You get the highs, you get the lows. And that's just the best. It's just a known way that's the best way to invest. But again, you have to look at like your finances and seeing what you're able to work with. Because eventually, even if you do 15%, eventually it's going to invest all the money. It's just not going to be the first month. Because it's like buying a house. When you buy a house and it's $100,000 and you're going to refi, they're not going to give you $100,000. They'll give you $80,000, right? And now if your house goes up in value and now it's $150,000, they're still not going to give you $150,000. They'll give you usually 80% of it, right? So they'll give you $130,000. So it's kind of the same thing. The $100 is the insurance. It's kind of like the buffer. It's just the insurance for your collateral. So in your collateral, which is your Bitcoin and Ethereum, that's your house. So if anything happens, like you make sure your loan and your collateral always stays like at a good pace where you don't get liquidated.
That makes sense. Because I know it's a little mind bending. We get it. But the truth is, once you see it and you see it a few times, bringing in the money, bringing it out, and then you see it investing, you see, oh, wow, I had 350. Let's say you did this 405. Now that 405 is Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I paid my bill. So now over time, that $405, if you believe Bitcoin and Ethereum is going to be worth a lot more in our lifetimes, that $405 could turn into 4,000, 40,000, who knows, right? And you paid a bill anyway. So again, like she said, you're really only risking 105. And now because you risked 105, you invested a 405. So that's where this is the biggest part of the concept that we need to figure out how to get people to understand faster. But any questions?
What's the importance of the buffer amount? Like when you put in, like, let's say I wanted to put in like $200 and I want $200 back. I usually put in a buffer of 50. What's the importance of that buffer?
Okay, so it's like Francis said, where if you buy a house and you put 15% down, right? So you put in 15% down, so you got 85% to make up for it because they're lending you the house of the full amount, right? But if you put in a 20% or 30% or 35% down, let's say you bought a house and you put 35% down, then you have less of of an amount to pay off, right? So it works the same way with this. Because you have a loan, the more you put on top of that loan, the more difference we have between collateral and loan, so the more can be invested faster. So this is why when you go from 15, it can invest 79, but when you go to 35%, we can invest 240. The reason is because we have a lot more room between your loan and your collateral. So all that area there makes more of room that we can buy Bitcoin and Ethereum for you before you get to a position where your loan is at risk. So to transition that after this, I'll explain what the loan at risk stuff means and how we protect it. Did that answer your question though? Okay. So the more you put beyond the loan, the more we can invest. The reason for that is because we built this platform on top of the biggest open source crypto bank in the world. It's called Aave. If you can see right here, there's $20 billion of people all around the world doing this. It's an open source peer-to-peer lending platform. So Francis and I, we built this on top of that. And you basically, this allows you to create your own bank. For a few years, we were teaching people how to do this themselves by hand. The issue is, if you do it by hand, once you take out a loan, if the price of Bitcoin falls and Ethereum falls, they're going to take some of your collateral to pay off some of your loan. Does that make sense? Right? So if the price comes down, then your loan and your collateral are too close. They say, okay, we're not going to lose here. We're going to take some of your collateral and pay off your loan. So what we do is we don't allow that to happen. As the prices are falling, we're selling some of your Bitcoin and Ethereum back to dollars, so the loan never gets touched. And then we buy back in at that lower price. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
If it doesn't, it's okay. Trust me. This is like rocket science. Nobody gets it on the first try. If you do, you're a genius. Questions? There's no dumb questions. Trust me.
And also, I think it's a good point that this is in your own wallet. So we don't hold your money. We don't keep your money. You know, we're not like a bank or anything like that. You have your own wallet with your own seed phrase, your own, password and everything. And you could access that wallet anytime. If anything happens to Miguel or I, you can still have access to your wallet and to your money. So it's not, it's not like the banking system. It's like, oh, we foreclosed on a bunch of homes. Like, bank is closing, you get no money, or you get $250,000 or whenever they decide to give it to you. Here, if you have $1 million in it, it's in your wallet, it's in your possession. We don't hold anybody's money, which is another.
So she's bringing up one of the biggest reasons crypto is blowing up across the world. Banking systems, even the Coinbases. I don't know how many of you are familiar with like the FTX scandal, and there was another big platform that went under. So whenever you have money in one of these centralized exchanges, like even Coinbase, Kraken, which Binance, if that company goes out of business, they take your money and they use it to pay off their debts. And then they give you a small percentage of whatever they can. With our system, it's what's called self-custody. What self-custody means is you have a wallet where your money is all within your wallet. It's kind of like back in the day with our grandparents and they kept money under the mattress, right? And then they made us feel like, whoa, you don't want to do that. You want to put the money in the bank so you get interest and you can spend it in a better way, safer way. Now with cryptocurrency, those are wallets. So whenever you take your money off of Bitcoin, off of a Coinbase, and you send it to a wallet address, that is self-custody. So now you are responsible for your own money. Coinbase can go out of business. We can go out of business. Aave is an open source platform that can't go away. It's basically code on the internet. So Aave has $20 billion inside of it. Everybody will have to pull their $20 billion out for Aave to go out of business. So this is why we built it on top of Aave, because Aave is the most trusted, never been hacked, has $20 billion. Chase uses this. Multiple big companies use it because of it's really well built. So we built on top of that. And what we show people is you're creating your own bank. But the reason for doing that is I was just on a call right before this with a person that helps people with mortgages. that want to borrow off their mortgages, but they can't, even if they're totally paid off. So this person was just telling me about a example of a person that had a house paid off, needed money to fix their roof. But because they didn't have a job anymore, because they retired, the bank would not lend them money to fix their roof. But they had a full equity in their home. So with this system, this is where crypto is so much better. I'm going to show you an example wallet of one of my wallets. This wallet has 190K inside of it right now. I've already took out 150K of loans as I've been doing this for a long time at this point, about a year. Right now, if I wanted to, I could borrow 20K, no questions asked. Now, you may be thinking, but you got 190, why can you only borrow 20? It's because the difference between the loan, I got 150K in loan and 190 in value. So there's only 40K difference. And if I wanted to, I could close this, pay off the loan and take all 40K. But I don't want to. I'd rather borrow off of it and keep it growing. So there's a formula that Aave uses where it will only allow me to borrow 20K right now. But as the value of Bitcoin and Ethereum grows, I can borrow more and more tax-free, the same way you would borrow off your house or any other asset, even stocks. You can do that with stocks too. But stocks have a 50% borrow limit. It's called LTV, loan to value. So if you have 100,000 of stocks, you can only borrow 50. And if the value of the stock goes down 50%, they take all your stocks. But with this, it's a 77% loan to value on Bitcoin and Ethereum combined, and a 93% on the USDC, the dollars. So what we do is when you deposit your money, we borrow right away. You get your money to spend it, and then we invest that the full collateral into Bitcoin and Ethereum. If you can look at this wallet, it's investing $279 a day. It still has 150K to invest in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So over time, it's going to be investing all that money. And every time I bring in new money, it will be investing that as well and growing the value of this portfolio. Eventually, the goal is this portfolio, I wanted to get to millions of dollars so I can borrow every year enough to pay my expenses. And this is a business account. So I can pay my company expenses and my personal expenses based off this portfolio's growth. And again, the portfolio growth is based on Bitcoin and Ethereum, which I told you have been growing 90% a year versus putting it in a house. Houses grow I think 3 to 10% a year, depending on where you have them. Too.
Yeah.
Depending on where you have it. Stocks grow 7 to 10% a year. What else? Life insurance does the same kind of concept, but they only grow like 4 to 6% a year. What else? Any other asset class I'm missing here?
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, and then all those other asset classes, when it's time to borrow, you need to get permission from someone else. With real estate, I just told you, person has a hole in their roof. They can't even borrow for fully paid off house because the bank won't let them. Stock is the same thing. You're going to a bank and you're saying, I'm giving you my stocks to borrow from them. So they have to look at your credit, look at your job, and approve this. With this crypto thing, these are what's called non-recourse loans. So this doesn't touch your credit. So it doesn't touch your real world life. If you never pay off this loan, nobody's coming after you because you've over collateralized this loan. So there's really no reason for nobody to come back at you because worst case scenario, the platform would just keep your crypto. Right? So if you, and this is why you got to put in more than you borrow, because if you never come back, they'll keep your crypto. But the way we positioned it, you never have to worry about them keeping your crypto because the only way they keep your crypto is when the collateral touches the loan, they pay off the loan. I said too much right now without hearing any questions. So any questions from anyone?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The money that you supposedly borrow, do you have to borrow it or could you just let it sit there and accumulate? So
You can let it sit there. So we have a deposit only feature where you could just deposit USDC. You don't need to borrow. But what we like to tell people is the reason why we connect it with a bill is for consistency's sake. Most people don't view investing as something they need to do every month, or they don't get that habit. So we worry about people that deposit only, but then they only do it every now and then, and they're not being consistent enough to really get the rewards that they want, right? So
Okay.
if every time you think I'm about to pay a bill, then you say, okay, but how much can I stack? Right? So if let's say the bill is $300 and you say, I can only stack $60. So then you say, okay, I'm going to bring it in here and I'm going to pick 20% buffer. So now I'm investing $200 this month versus $60 or nothing. Because most people won't even invest the $60 because they may feel like, what's $60 going to do? That's not going to turn into nothing anyway. I might as well not even do it. But
Right.
$200, that's different, right? That's a different amount of investing. And of course, the more you can do, and we got people doing this, businesses mostly, right? If you have a business that can do a $6,000 buffer, then you could be investing tens of thousands of dollars a month. And that's what I'm doing with this account that I just showed you.
Smart. Yeah. Very
And that's the
smart.
thing, like, if you deposit only, if you're like, oh, I have $100 left over, which is what most people do. It's like, oh, I got $100, I'm just gonna put it in Coinbase. Then you're only buying $100 worth of Bitcoin. But if you're like, I have an extra $100, but I could do this whole stack and pay my bill with it, then you're gonna have $400 a month invested in Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? So it's like, it's actually 400 versus just 100. And yeah, you have a loan of 300, but it's like saying like, oh, my mom is gonna give me her house, but it has $100,000. You're still gonna take it, even though it has a loan, right? So it's kind of the
Of
same thing.
course.
It's gonna keep growing. It's like, I'll take 5 houses if they all have mortgages on them, because you know they're gonna grow in value, and then now you have all this equity in 5 different houses. So it's kind of the same thing here. It's the multiples, right? Sometimes what people don't understand, we've always been taught to like not do loans. Loans is bad. It's bad loans,
Yep,
debt.
your
Bad.
loans. Yeah,
Good
exactly.
debt, and there's bad debt.
Right.
Car, bad debt. A house, good debt. And usually if it's like a primary home, but we will get into a whole nother thing. If it's a primary home that you live in, it's not the best. It's not the
Not an
best.
investment.
If
at
it's
that
a
Okay.
rental property, you got some good debt, right? Because it's paying for itself. You
Mhm.
get income, you got the passive income, right? So that's where like things, but that would, again, that would be a whole like financial discourse. But we always
I
say
see.
like, don't just put $100, put $400, invest $400. It's much better. And your loan, you don't have to pay every month. Like if you buy a house, every month you gotta send the money to the bank. That's not how crypto works, which is something that we're like, switch that switch that we've been taught all the time. Like, this is something completely different. You don't have to pay it back every month. You just put it in there and let it ride, because your collateral is gonna grow. So you don't have to worry about that part.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
perfect.
loan thing, I think she touched on it. You had another question?
Yeah. Is this, forgive my ignorance, is this one of those systems where it's like you use debt as insurance that actually grows into something that you could actually touch, the cash, like tangible cash? Is it one of those systems, or am I thinking about something else?
I don't know what those are, but
Mhm.
for this is where normal lending, right? So for instance, a house
Okay.
or even a personal loan at a bank, there is a specific situation that they put you in. They say, okay, you got to pay it back every month. You have to have good credit. You have to have a job, or we're not giving you this money, right?
Right.
This crypto is called over collateralized loans. So because you put in $405 and you borrowed 300, nobody's coming after you ever, because you put in
Okay.
more than you're borrowing. You get that money immediately. Like Francis said, the money goes into your bank account and it's there in 24 hours or less. So now you can spend it the way you have been. One of the big things that she said is we fear loans because of the way society has taught us bad debt. But what if I
Right.
told you, I'll lend you money to buy Bitcoin right now. You just got to pay me back later. Would you rather do that or not? Right? Like, and at the end of the day, that's what's happening here. You're borrowing money
Okay.
to pay your bills, but really what you're doing is you're buying Bitcoin and Ethereum at the price it is today instead of what it's going to be in 5 years, just like a house, right? So if you bought a house in the 80s, you're pretty good right now because you bought that house. They lent you the money to buy the house in the 80s, and now it's worth $1 million. Same idea with Bitcoin and Ethereum. But the worst part about real estate is if you end up in a situation where you don't have a job at the moment and you need money, you can't borrow off that house because the bank won't lend it to you at that moment. But
Exactly,
here,
yeah.
there's nobody to ask questions. Like, it's just, do I have the money in there or not? If I do, You could take out this money on a Sunday night at 12 o'clock and nobody's gonna tell you no.
Nice. Okay.
That's
All
the
right.
beauty of crypto. That's where we try to make sure people understand this is why it was created, not as just a Ponzi scheme, money go up, money go down. It was created
I
to
see.
circumvent banks because banks, they do all kinds of
Yes.
shady things. And this
Oh,
code is all,
absolutely. Yes.
it was all coded to go around them. So that's why it's create your own bank and buy assets and then borrow off of them the same way you would do in those places. If you can at all, like right now, walking into a bank, even with a job, I hear people can't get loans.
Yeah, it's a struggle. Yeah, especially without the right paperwork or credentials. Yeah, it's a struggle. I see
Another-
people. Yeah,
Sorry, go
I
ahead.
see people get denied, and they have like properties and investments in here, and you're like, wow, it's stunning to see that. But yeah. Yeah.
And also, we always like to say that it's not a get rich quick scheme. Like, this isn't, you're not gonna be
No.
rich in 6 months. Like, you're not gonna put in front of bucks and be like, here we go, like, come to, you know, it's not that. We always have like, we always say, if you're not gonna put your money in for at least 4, 5, 6 years or even longer, you know, we tell people to look at it as a 401k plan. I don't know if you guys have that in the UK,
Nice.
but
Okay.
it's just kind of like a savings plan, you know. We just say, just put your money in, don't even look at it, you know what I mean? Like, it's a process, right? Because it's going to go up and down, especially Bitcoin and Ethereum have a lot of volatility because it's so new, right? It's like the stock market 100 years ago, it was the same thing, right? And now it's like
Right.
7 to 10% because it's been around for 100 years, right? Bitcoin and Ethereum has been around for what, 10 years? Ethereum, what, 5 years? So that's why there's so much gains at this moment in time. But we don't see it as a gambling, right? We see it as like, you put your money in, you let it stay there for a while, and then you're going to reap the benefits. And we always like ask for like your freedom number, like what's the number that you want to get to that you can live from for, you know, yearly, and whatever number that is, that's kind of like the amount of money that you need to have in there so you can live from. And you borrow, because when you borrow, you don't pay taxes, right? So that's how the wealthy live. They, you know, they
Right.
never sell their properties, right? They just keep taking, they keep refinancing and refinance and refinance. They never sell the properties, and they take that refi, they don't pay taxes on it, and they buy their yachts, right? That's how it
Yeah.
works. So like we're trying to just like all buy yachts together, like line them up on their private islands. But it's gonna be at
Oh,
least
hell
5
yeah.
years. That's what we're
Yeah.
saying. Like we're saying at least 5 years. And we try to say that to everyone because we want to make sure to be as transparent as possible. This isn't like you're not gonna get rich tomorrow. Maybe you will. Maybe Bitcoin will go through 1 million tomorrow, and then we'll all be rich,
Who
right? Like,
knows? Right.
Yeah, who knows?
but hope that's like, but
Yes.
but it's all about that, what Miguel said, like that monthly, you know, commitment of just contribution of just put in monthly, letting it ride, compounding year over year, and then you're gonna be all right.
So another
course,
thing,
okay.
you just reminded me of something. I like to start these calls, but we never do it as a group. So if you're not comfortable saying your number, it's okay. What is your freedom number, right? Francis and I, you know, we have our own individual goals of we want to live off a number every year that we know we need to make. So just like Lima, she said, I want to retire in 5 years. She had a number in her head of, I need to make this much money every year to retire. So do you guys think, have you ever thought of that? We find actually most people haven't, but if you haven't, today's the day. Any number, if you had to throw out a number today, if you say, if I make 100K a year, I can retire. If I make 200, I can retire. What's that number?
Minimum 250. Okay.
250,
Hopefully
okay.
yes, that's a stretch though. I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but one day, you know.
Okay,
It can happen.
250, love it. Anybody else?
I'm gonna go with the 100K.
All right, love it. Anybody else?
Lauren?
All right.
Let's do the numbers for the 100 and the 250.
Yeah. So what we've been seeing so far, and I'm going to pull up a compound interest calculator and I'll explain. So there's another section to this investment opportunity too within Stack. One thing we see is some people can't always afford the buffer, right? So what they'll say is, yeah, my bills are $3,000 a month, but I can't afford the extra 1,000. I might be able to afford 200 or 300. So what we did is we created this third option here called invest only. What that does is it takes the amount you can put in as a buffer and you just deposit that. But again, that's the future. We make sure people just understand that that's possible. We don't like starting people with that. But
Yeah.
the reason why I come up with it is because if you want to get to the number, you need to be able to invest 1,500 a month per million you want to live, wait, no, per 100,000. So let's say you wanted to get to 100,000 over the next 5 years. That means you would have to put in $1,500 a month for the next 5 years to be able to borrow 100,000 a month. I mean, 100,000 a year and live. How did I get that number? Funny you should ask. No. So, all right. So basically, we're going to put in sorry, all right, we almost there. All right, there it is. Okay. 1,500. No. I got thrown off. So, yeah, all right. Why is that? Because the buffer here is 1,500, but you're bringing in 10,000 with 1,500 buffer, if that's what you can do. I know not everybody can do that, but if
But
you
it's still
take
1,500, so you're gonna get that $10,000 back.
you're
So
gonna
it's
get
really
10,000 back immediately. So again, if you want to live off 250 or 100, it's because you're probably living close off of that now, right? Or I don't know many people that want to live off more than they're making right now, because most of the way retirement savings is you actually have to lower your expenses once you retire, not raise them. Unless you're making millions and you could do that, normal working people have to lower their expenses once they retire. So if you're making this kind of money, you could do 1,500 extra. Check this out. So you're going to invest 4,000 about a month, but it really is going to invest all of it over time. So check this out. So if we take 11,500, we're going to take for 5 years, and we're going to say Bitcoin and Ethereum only grow 15% a year, which I told you is really right now has been averaging about 80, 90. So you see how in 5 years of doing this, really 1,500, bringing in 11,500, getting 10 back immediately, you get to 930,000. So that's very close to a million, right? Again, not exact, but again, I expect Bitcoin and Ethereum to do much more than 15%. Even if it just does 20, you're at a million in 5 years. Again, if you want to do it in 10 years, you have this number. Let's say 6,500, and we do it for 10 years. Now you reach your amount, actually 2 million in 10 years. So again, if you could bring in 6,500, borrow 5, now you can get to, within 10 years, you get to 2 million. That means you could borrow 10% of the 2 million every year, and that means you can live off 200,000. Does that make sense? I know that was really confusing sometimes. And again, these numbers we're just starting to really work through, showing people compound interest calculators and stuff. And this is a thing you can go and check yourself. These are all, this is investor.gov. So it's not like our own calculator, which we are creating our own calculator that will show you based on your goal. If you say, okay, I want to, like you said, 250, that means you need to get to 2.5 million. So that means you got to figure out how much can you put in as fast as possible as Bitcoin and Ethereum are these prices, right? Because the longer you wait, the price grows. So it's not going to grow as much over time, right? Just like Francis was saying, the stock market early on was doing the same type of numbers as Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing now. But now 100 years later, it only does 7 to 10% a year. So if you started investing 100 years ago, you're mega rich, right? Versus investing today, you're going to get a lesser return on that investment. Again,
Okay.
questions. I know that was a lot. So please stop me and double check my math, whatever you want to do.
No, everything is okay, man. I pretty much answers my questions. Thank you.
Okay, so in this example here, and again, everybody has a buffer that they can afford. What we tried to tell them is the more you can sacrifice for the buffer, the more you are able to invest. So if we take that example right there and we bring in 5,000 and we do even a 35%, a 30% buffer, this is exact. Look, you're basically bringing in 6,500, borrowing 5 every month. It's investing 5 in that first month, which means you're getting more Bitcoin and Ethereum faster. So if it grows faster, you benefit from that quicker. But again, you could do it less. You may not be able to do all 1,500. You may be able to do 750. And again, this is where the buffer is really the main question. How much can you really afford after you pay your bills to put into this type of system? And the more you can do, the more you're investing. We tell people start out with a small amount so you can just test it and see it work. And as you feel comfortable, you grow. And now our average wallet is about $45,000 of people doing this. Like, of course, it's been around for almost a year and a half now. So people have been doing it for months, right? And as you do that, think about how much money you spend every year. That's not even what most people spend a year. People spend more than that. So people have been very dedicated to continue. And that's where we see the people who are not as consistent, their wallets don't grow as much. So that's where we're looking and we're like, if you really got this goal of 5-10 years, the only way to get there is to invest more, right? Like you can't get there without investing. That's another big thing we see, especially for people like you. You all have jobs, probably pretty good jobs, but we see way too many people with good jobs that say, I have no idea how I'm going to reach retire. And it's like, you have a good job. The reason is you're not sacrificing enough to invest. And before, your options were stocks or real estate. But what we're seeing, Francis and I, we're like, I don't know if those two asset classes are the best for this generation, because we get to learn from the past generation. And we're seeing people who are retiring now that can't borrow off their real estate, can't borrow off their stocks. So we're like, I don't want to end up in that position, right? So that's where we are. And that's why we built this for our people. But of course, what's happening right now is mostly rich people, fund managers and stuff like that are using it. But again, it is what it is. It works for everyone. But I'm glad. Thank you, Lima, for bringing on everyone on this call. But I would love to understand any questions about any of this. Not even just what I just said, just the total, everything I just said, 40 minutes of talking. And Francis, anything any of us have said that you still don't understand or you want more clarity, you could ask us now. And we also have a free community that we have customers in that they'll ask questions even while they use the app or before they use the app. I'll send you that as well. Any questions?
And if you don't feel comfortable, we could get on a one-on-one. We could send you our
Yes,
Calendly link and you could just set up a 30-minute call with us and we'll jump on. We could do that as well.
I just had a comment. I started out like really, really being or not knowing what you were talking about, just being lost. But the homeowner analogy, that gathered me together really quick. So that's a good one.
Thank
you.
We need that.
A lot of people, own homes. So that really brought me around quickly. And I do have Bitcoin and stuff, but I think I would like to get started and I'll start small. I think that's good for me. I just think I need a little more hand holding. So I'll probably do a 30-minute one-on-one.
No problem at all. Amazing. And thank you for the feedback. Like, again, as Startup Founders, Francis and I, we do something on the calls normally. It's called the mom test, because most people will never tell you your baby's ugly, It's like, oh, I don't understand. This is stupid. Right? But again, if we ask specific questions, you'll tell us the feedback and then we really learn. And thank you for that. That was helpful.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And I think a lot of people or most people in my age group are seeing like the difference between what our parents told us about traditional saving and stuff. And we're getting ready to retire and we're just not ready. So, that message speaks like volumes. Like, how could we have worked all these years at these great jobs or what we thought was great jobs, but then when we look at our money getting ready to retire, we still don't have it, and then we see the like younger generations like making tons of money and we're like, wait, what happened? What is going on here?
I'll tell you, my dad just retired. He had a union carpentry job in New York City, which they're the top paid carpenters, a paid off home, a pension, and a 401k. And even him, he's worried about money. And I'm like, if you have all that, most people don't have all that. And you're worried, imagine what everybody else is dealing with. So we were like, if we can get, again, people around our age, right? Like, again, I'm 45. I know I look 25, but I'm 45. Well, the grace. I'm supposed to retire in 20 years. And without this, I don't know how I would have done it. That's why I got into real estate. So for instance, I'll give you an example of something that I did that I learned from. I said, okay, I'm going to get into vacation real estate because that's what people say, right? Like buy assets that, like Francis said, that take cash flow, that get you cash flow. So I bought the real estate property. I bought it in Dominican Republic. It was about 65K when I bought it, but I borrowed 150K off the home, a HELOC, bought the property. When I did that, Bitcoin was $5,000, Ethereum was $300. I bought the property, been renting it out over time, always fun times when the customer has problems, I got to deal with them. Francis helps me out, but you know, it's always something. Then fast forward 3 years later, the property value doubled, right? Everybody's like, that's amazing. You did an amazing job. Doubled the value. Now it's worth 130. Bitcoin and Ethereum, if I were to put that same amount into Bitcoin and Ethereum, I would have $1.5 million versus $130,000 property. That's a pain to manage.
But he's not bitter. He's
Wow.
not bitter. That's just a story. He's
I'm
not
not
bitter.
bitter. I just bring it up every single time. But the truth
But
of the
you don't know
matter
what you don't know.
is, you don't
And
know what you don't
Right.
know.
Right.
that 2020 hindsight, it's easy to say now because you know, but back then you're like, no, property is like the right thing. And that's when we're actually getting into it. He's like, you got to buy. And I'm like, wait. And he bought a bunch before I did.
Yeah.
Like,
So just to throw Francis under the bus, I told her about it when it was about 12,000. She didn't buy until it was 68,000.
58,
58.
you know.
Again.
And then it went down to like 18, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. But again, she was buying properties too, and
Yeah.
more expensive properties. So again, we both went through those cycles and saw it firsthand and said, I don't know if that's the asset class that's gonna help us retire. Yeah, Francis is retired early because of real estate, but not everybody's gonna be able to manage the properties like she does. I know I don't want to. It's a huge pain. I don't want to deal with it. So again, I do tell people, try different asset classes. This may not be the asset class for you, but if you're around our age, I really don't know if you have a choice. Hate to say it. If you want your money to grow fast and then be able to borrow off of it, show me the asset class because I'll invest in that one too. But I haven't found it. Life insurance is one that we've come across and people say, but again, you have to put in a lot of money before you can borrow off of it, like 100,000. With this, you could borrow off of it with $1. You could deposit $1 and borrow 50 cents.
Yeah.
That's major difference.
And that's also in the stock market, right? So you got 7 to 10%. So you're not going to get the same growth as you do here.
So that's where, like, again, we do tell people you should believe in Bitcoin and Ethereum if you do this, though, because we had one person, they brought in $500,000, but they really didn't believe in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So in the first month, the price nosedived right after they put the 500,000 in, and they were freaking out. Like, oh my God, what did I do? I just wasted all this money. I'm like, you really thought this was going to work in 1 month? Give it some time. 2 months later, they're up and they're ecstatic that I talked them off the ledge. Again, I can't give financial advice though, right? I said, look, if you want to close the wallet, do it. But I do think this is the worst time to sell, right? Like, you're going to sell your house when it's worth the least, or wait till it comes back. It's not like you got to wait 20 years. Just give it a few months. They gave it a few months. Now they're happy. Again, so this is why Francis is right. If you're not in this for at least a few years, don't even start because it's not going to be a fun ride. There's ups, downs. But as I said, When Francis and I started, it was, well, I 12, her 40, whatever. But again, that ride back down to 18,000 was tough, but she believed enough in it to say, I know this is not going anywhere. I'm buying more. Versus if she didn't believe in it, she would have been like, oh my God, and sold it and lost that money, right? Because once you sell, you lose. If you hold back till you come back, you don't really lose the money. So any other questions? All right. So what I'll do is I'll give Lima actually, I'll put it here if you want. I'll put it in the chat here. And Lima, if anybody still doesn't have it and you need me to give it to you, I'll give you that. There's 2 links. There's our meeting link for setting up 30-minute calls. That is, I got too many windows open, multiple screens. All right, so I'll put that here, and then we have the community link, which is a place you can go, and actually we have videos like this that we're making here where you can watch and you can learn more if you need. Any other questions while I put these links in?
Where, I'm sorry, where is the chat? On my phone, I do not see a chat or raise your hand like type button. Oh, okay, something just popped up. Stack it
Yeah,
to
just-
meeting group chat. Okay.
Okay, so that's the community link. You could join that, it's free. And then I'm sending the link to create the 30-minute calls with us. And again, if I can WhatsApp it to Lima and she could send it to you another way as well.
That would be great. Thank you.
All right, so I'm sending you that, Lima, right now.
And also maybe the email, we'll send all that to Lima in case you want to email us, or, you know, once you start doing it, like we'll walk you through the whole thing. You know, if you're like, I've got $100, I just want to check out how it works, we'll show you, you know, it doesn't have to be a bunch of money. Like you can start with a little bit and just see how the process works, right? It's just the technology of it. And then if you feel more comfortable, we'll get back on more calls and you can start with a little more or less, or just do it monthly, which is why we suggest. But yeah.
Any final questions? I'm almost done with the link.
No, I just want to thank you both so much, and thank you, Lima. And Lima, I'll see you tomorrow and get all the information.
Ooh. That's it.
Thank you all for your time on a Sunday. Amazing. Hopefully it was understood. And if it wasn't, again, Francis said, set up a 30-minute with us or join the community and just start seeing, because that's another place we do troubleshooting for our customers. So if a customer's having issues, we'll answer it right there or jump on a 30-minute call with them. Again, we're a year and a half in, so we're very hands-on with this stuff, and we're trying to get as many people early as possible on, because the sooner they'll be free.